Hello everyone, and welcome to the 7th episode of 240p Club. Today we will be discussing the SNES today.
Yay!
Yay!
SNES recently had a birthday. It is, in the US anyway, 25 years old.
Happy birthday!
Happy quarter century SNES. We had a success because we did our RPG podcast last, and we talked about a whole lot of titles released for this system. This is still considered one of the most legendary systems of all time. As we know, SNES culture, like, people still to this day play SNES games. The SNES is commonly available if you are looking to purchase on eBay or whatever other system. Most of the game titles released for the SNES's lifespan were considered gaming legends.
You can also pick up a Super NES system if they have it at GameStop. Like, they just recently started doing retro gaming again, so if you're lucky enough to get it on the website, as they're most likely not going to have it in stores, but if you're lucky enough to find it on the website, grab it before someone else does.
You could also go to eBay. A lot of flea markets have these. Like, people find them in their garage, just need a little cleaning, but they usually work. You know, this is a system that is not hard to find, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you don't mind 100% accuracy, a lot of stores also have the Retrons and other consoles that emulate the Super Nintendo and play the original cartridges.
I've never actually used one of these. Have you, Ray?
I have not. The closest I came was I tried this NES emulation system at one point called the Generation NEX, which was absolutely terrible.
Yeah, the most experience I've had with that is I never actually played it. I've seen I forget what company it was. It was available on ThinkGeek, among other places. It was a portable SNES. Basically, it wasn't like an emulator, but it actually had a cartridge slot. Like, it was wide enough for the cartridge slot, and then you have this little screen there. It kind of resembled a giant Game Boy Advance.
Or like an unofficial, like, Nintendo equivalent of the Sega Nomad, which was an official, like, portable Genesis that you could take with you.
Oh yeah, the Sega Nomad. I remember friends that had that as well. It ate up batteries because this was back before they thought to have rechargeable batteries. So it kind of suffered the same fate as the Game Gear. It was portable, but at the same time, it really wasn't, because you would eat up your batteries in like hours.
But when you think about it, the Game Gear was also basically just a portable version of the Sega Master System. Like, it used all the same hardware and so forth. So
this is the same concept.
It tended to eat up a lot of batteries when you're just putting a console into a portable format, at least back then.
Yeah, especially because technology wasn't as advanced, because you had now LED screens, LCD screens that use up a far less battery power. But back in the day, to have a color system and a backlit color system at that, your batteries stood no chance. But we're talking about the SNES. The SNES, there's a bunch of emulators out there, and I know someone hacked a PSP Vita. What's the system called?
PlayStation Vita.
Yeah, someone hacked a PlayStation Vita recently and put a Super Nintendo emulator on it and showing us playing like Mario Kart on their Vita.
Which I personally, for my Vita, I wouldn't recommend, because it's
illegal.
Oh yeah, first off, it's illegal. Secondly, it's just, I use that for my, quote, portable PS3 games. My PS3 games actually don't play on the Vita, but they made, like, kind of downgraded version, not exactly downgraded, but like smaller versions of the PS3 games onto my Vita. Unlike the PSP, where you can play your PSP games on your TV, you cannot play your Vita games on your TV.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
Well, I mean, you kind of can. They have this thing called PlayStation TV, but it's really not worth buying.
Yeah. But, these are all modern systems. This is one of my favorite systems of all time, the Super Nintendo.
I think it probably is my favorite.
The best part about this Super Nintendo is, you remember back in the day how systems like the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, I think, were the last two systems to actually do this. But when you buy the system, it comes with 2 controllers.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, I know. It's an alien concept, because the way the controllers at this point have become just as expensive as some of the games.
I think a lot of the issue why it comes with one controller now is because they're promoting online gaming as opposed to split screen playing with the person in the same room as you.
That is very true, but at the same time, when you have a gathering of people that want to play something and you don't want to hook up a LAN party, that works. If they even still do LAN parties.
Probably not.
I don't know. That's going old school.
But yeah, it's just a marketing ploy, really. What they want you to do is they want you, like, actually to play online. That if you have a PS4, you have to pay to play online now. So that's, of course, marketing strategy more, and
Yeah, let's get away from marketing strategy. I'd rather have a Super Nintendo I could just plug into my TV. I don't have to look for an Ethernet cable or Wi-Fi password. I just hook up to the TV and start playing.
There's really no problem with that. It's fast, it's quick, and convenient.
So when did you guys get a Super Nintendo?
I received mine, I believe, on my 8th birthday in September of 1992. And it came with Super Mario World, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time. And like a month later, I got Super Castlevania 4.
Ironically, for my 10th birthday that same year, I got a Genesis, which I don't regret. When I was a kid, we had a video store that was a block away, and they had Nintendo titles and Genesis titles. They didn't start getting the Super Nintendo titles. They just, because Genesis was the popular thing, Sonic was out. So every kid around the neighborhood got a Genesis because they could hit up this video store and rent games. And also because Sonic the Hedgehog drew everybody in. But I eventually, around Christmas time in '93, I got a Super Nintendo. My cousins had a Super Nintendo. I used to go over to their house basically like every other weekend in the summertime, sleep over there and play through Super Mario World, among other titles they've had. I believe they had Mario Kart, a few other titles I can't really remember off the top of my head, but we'd go there, I'd play through Super Mario World. It actually got to the point where I beat Super Mario World. I didn't find all the secrets, but I beat it over their house, much to the shock of some of my cousin's friends, because I'm this kid, I don't even own a Super Nintendo, and I just sat there and beat the game. But anyway, I love that game so much that I wanted a Super Nintendo ever since then. Got it in '93, along with Street Fighter II Turbo, when the Street Fighter II Turbo port they released for that system.
I received my SNES, I think it may have been in the winter of '94. I spent my summer in Greece, and they didn't have, the video game thing wasn't really big in Greece at that point. Maybe it was, downtown Athens or so, but we were a little more in the villages with our families, and we played baseball, we played whatever we played. Kind of going off topic, the funny thing is, I'm in Greece, I'm supposed to learn Greek, right? No, that's actually not what happened. I ended up teaching my cousins English. So, one of my cousins was actually familiar with Super Mario, so we were able to go downtown and we played Super Mario there, and it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. When I came back to America, then we started playing SNES over at my friend's house. I saw the commercial for A Link to the Past, and I was kind of into that whole medieval stuff, which I still am now, and I thought the commercial was really cool. So I remember pointing out that commercial to my dad. I said, "This is the game that I want." And my dad said, "Well, you don't have a system for it. How the hell do you expect to play it?" That Christmas, I ended up getting a system, and I still remember the box, the big black box. It came with Super Mario World. It came with 2 controllers, as we mentioned, which is the coolest thing. I ended up getting 5 more games with that. I think it was A Link to the Past, Super Mario World, which came with a system, Hyper Zone, Pilot Wings, and I can't remember the 5th game, but Zelda was one we played religiously. And then, somehow, my dad got his hands on Pilot Wings, and we never put that game down. Top Gear, that was the last game that I got with
Top Gear.
I remember because he was in love with that game, too. and we played that game together like religiously.
By that point, Funko Land opened, which is it was acquired by GameStop. I think Funko Lands became GameStop.
Sorry, I used to work for GameStop, so I can make fun of them as much as I want.
Yeah, but that was the ancestor to GameStop. Opened up in a strip mall, and yeah, they sold used titles for very affordable. I built up my NES collection actually around that time, because a majority of the games they were selling for $5 to $10. Actually, I think the most I paid for a NES game was $17.99. Granted, you got them in those little paper sleeves that they used to sell with like a little index card for an instruction book, but it was still the game. I built my NES library up at the time, but the SNES, they always had one plugged in, and I remember they looking at their little pricing guides, see what the games they had for cheap. They had a game called Darius Twin, which was a shooter from Taito, which spawned a series. That was part of the series. There's a sequel called Darius Graydon, which made its way to the Sega Saturn as one of the launch titles for the Saturn. Yeah, basically shooters. Very good game. It was cheap. That's what drew me to it, and I was addicted. And then after that, I just started saving my money, started to acquire Super NES titles. I remember Christmas '94. I was 12 years old and obsessed with the system. So I believe it was '94 anyway. I was obsessed with the system, so I wanted to acquire as many titles as I could. So my entire Christmas list was Super Nintendo games, and it wound up being what did I get that year? Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy III. I got there's like 5. I got at least 5 games for the Super NES.
Barbie Supermodel.
Yeah, I got the Barbie game.
I no lies, I actually had that game. Yo, that game is so, I'm not gonna lie, that game is actually kind of difficult. You're trying to drive through the streets of LA, and you got, people on their rollerblades, jumping in front of your car, and, you're not supposed to hit them, but it's kind of
it was basically the Barbie version of Grand Theft Auto.
Yes, exactly.
You got to run over rollerbladers and basically be a driving maniac.
And then get a makeover, then go do a model show right after.
Wow. And you wonder why this generation is so screwed up.
Did you somehow get Captain Novel that year?
No, I didn't get Captain Novel.
The game where you play as a superhero with diabetes, and it gives lots of insulting advice about diabetes.
Oh, God.
Holy shit.
I don't think I ever came across that.
Yeah, I've actually never heard of that.
That's no.
I'm actually kind of curious of how it plays now.
Yeah, I almost want to play this game now.
Did this, somehow make Nintendo come out with Dr. Mario, then?
No, this was for the Super NES at about, 93 or 94, I think.
That game sounds horrible.
Yeah, it really does.
I don't ever really want to play it.
I'm just going to YouTube it.
It's pretty short.
Okay, I still don't want to play it.
There were a lot of, other games that, I used to get also when I was a kid. If I got, a really good report card, which was, all the time, because, I'm a great student.
Yeah, you're smart. SMRT.
I'm trying to go for Dean's List this year, so it's going to be interesting. But anyway.
I didn't make it through college.
Well, I'm trying over here to do so.
Yeah.
Wish me luck, everyone. College is expensive.
Good luck. Pay Nikki.
Yes, pay me. Pay my bills when I'm done.
Yeah.
But when we used to get really good report cards, my mom would surprise us with a game. She'd say, "Oh, go upstairs. I got something for you." And I remember we pulled out we went into her drawers and moved all the clothes out of the way, and there was a surprise game for us. I think this one specifically was Joe and Mac, and
oh yeah,
that game was so much fun. Me and my brother played that for hours.
Yeah, these are all great titles. The SNES had a bunch of titles. I remember they had a huge hype over. There's a Star Trek Next Generation game, which was kind of disappointing. But the funniest part about this game, all the red shirt ensigns that were supposed to basically get killed real quick were all named after video game magazine editors. So you look around, it's all these video game magazine editors as red shirts. Which, if you're not familiar with the Star Trek universe, means you're probably going to die in that episode. until Captain Picard rocked the red shirt as captain of the Enterprise. But yeah, no, there's a lot of games. There's an Addams Family game. I think it was based off the Addams Family Values movie. If I'm not mistaken, it was actually halfway decent for the Super NES. One of my neighbors got that with her system. And yeah, that was a lot of fun playing through. Star Fox, you know, when that came out.
I love Star Fox.
Yeah, Nintendo that came out with the Super FX chip. It was called. It was basically, it made it look like not 3D, but as close to 3D as you could get on a 240p system.
And it was really cool how, I think, was that one of the first games to feature voice acting, or?
Did it have voice acting? Because
quote voice acting, because it really wasn't them talking.
Well, no, I mean, like the NES had a few games. Skater Die 2 was the first one I know.
Featured voice acting, like, distinctively.
Because I remember all it was kind of just like gibberish, like.
At the end, I mean, the endings did have voice acting. I think it was just like Dan Osen or somebody talking for the voice of Fox, but it was like mission complete. Well done, Star Fox. Mm-hmm. This is General Pepper speaking or something.
Yeah, but I just remember that game was so cool.
Yeah. Now, I actually was going a little off topic. The first game I remember with voice acting was Skater Die 2, which was Electronic Arts' first game ever for the NES. Because the original Skater Die was ported over by Konami, aka Altry, which, you know, is the same company. For the Super Nintendo, though, obviously everyone knows the iconic, you know, Metroid. The last Metroid is in captivity, you know. Yeah, no, the Super Nintendo had so many good games. The reason why, I think, this is up for debate, though. I do believe the Super Nintendo won the 16-bit wars. If you think about it, like, even though the Genesis had a 2-year head start and actually dominated them for most of the early 90s, around 93, 94, Nintendo's banner year, basically, we call it, popped up, where every game released for that game system was, like, every game like that had a major release for that system, I should clarify, was an instant classic. Like, you know, we've discussed this again on many podcasts. Like, we had the, Final Fantasy 3,
Donkey Kong Country,
Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island,
Super Mario RPG,
Star Fox,
Mega Man X,
Mega Man the X series. All these games showed up for the system and catapulted it back to number one. Nintendo had a strength in their licenses. Their library of games is still keeping them afloat to this day, because a lot of the top selling games for the Wii U had to do with their old licenses. Like, look at Super Mario Maker. It's basically, you know, you made your own Mario levels, Mario World levels, etc., etc. So their licenses are things keeping them afloat.
I remember another SNES memory was when I used to go to my aunt's house. We used to play Street Fighter 2 there all the time. And I started to get really good at it. I mean, of course, you know, because I'm a girl, I wanted to play with a girl character. And I ended up getting really good with her, and I
girl character, of course, being Chun-Li.
Yes. Which I may be cosplaying as soon someday. Or, you know, maybe like next week or so. But, I remember I used to go to arcades and play Street Fighter 2 with everyone, and because, you know, I got pretty damn good at it, people were getting so pissed off at me, like, how you losing to like a 5-year-old girl, not a 5-year-old, how you lose to like a 7-year-old girl? I'm like, either you really suck or I'm really good, so there's really no in between. But, we used to go there and we used to play all the games there. Eventually my cousin decided, I'm just too old for games, or I just don't like video games anymore. So he gave me all his collection, except for one game, which was Final Fantasy IV. He did not give me, and I knew he had the game, and I looked all over his house when he wasn't there. Like, I went...
Sneaky.
Yeah! I looked for that damn game. I'm like, I know you have Final Fantasy IV. Where is it? Well, at that point it was called Final Fantasy II. But he did give me a game called Nobunaga's Ambition, Lord of Darkness, which I still haven't beaten yet.
This kind of started her obsession with Koei games, because I know Nikki for many years. She's obsessed with some of these games. Little bit.
I like Nobunaga. I like him as a historical character, even though if you really read up on him, he's not necessarily the guy you want to be.
Right bastard.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I still haven't beat the game yet. Like, I mean, it probably has like some crappy ending, like, oh, you finally beat the game! Hooray! Congratulations!
Or congratulations.
Yeah, I'm not saying it. Nope.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Whatever English they decided to put into this game.
I mean, it's a cool game. It's just, I like strategy games, so.
Here's one. What did you think about Castlevania 4?
One of the best games in the series. Most definitely.
It
was basically a remake of the first Castlevania, and they just completely went the extra mile to make it completely easy to control, not like the other games. It's just all based on skill, and the graphics are amazing, the music is amazing.
I like the fact that they upgraded the whip. Like, you can swing the whip in many directions now, and actually have it hanging down, and just swing it around like it's like a chain, instead of just whip in one direction and that's it.
It's not like whipping your hair back and forth. I'm just kidding. We're gonna pretend that doesn't exist.
I'm not editing that out.
Yeah, no.
You gotta live with your embarrassment.
I'm not really doing this for embarrassment. I'm just trying to be funny. I am funny.
Keyword trying.
Yes, exactly.
I think our audience likes you, Nikki.
Yay! But that doesn't mean I like any of you. No, I'm just kidding. I like you people. You're nice.
And you alienated more of our audience.
Good! Get out of here! I'm kidding. Please listen to us.
Thank you.
We're fun. We're good people.
Yeah, we try.
We're amongst friends.
Of course.
But yeah, I mean, I do definitely enjoy the Castlevania series. I like the whole gothic atmosphere, and of course the music's always nice. The gameplay's good.
We've discussed RPGs in length last go around, so we're not going to mention any of the RPGs, but one of the best games ever released for the Super Nintendo to this day is still Super Metroid, which is a speedrunning classic now. It has become everyone wants to set the world record for beating this game.
And good luck, because everybody just kind of gives up after losing the Phantoon for the 20th time.
He's not that hard. Well, I guess he is hard if you only have 2 energy tanks, but
he's the boss all the speedrunners go after first, so yeah.
Oh, yeah, I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, he takes forever, too. I mean, but here's the thing, though. How can you access his level without getting the Varia suit?
By doing, a frame-perfect move to, bounce off the pillar where the missile is in the room with the moat. They call it the moat skip, I think.
I have to see this for myself, because... I never really, Ray's more of our retro, internet retro gamer. He's on top of the news and everything there. Me, I just used to play these games, and I have no idea about any of these glitches. Ray just showed me the mock ball glitch, not too long ago, which is if you turn into a ball, which is, Samus is, can basically hit down twice, you turn into a ball, you can get through these little corridors instead of crawling. And they had a glitch where if you turn into the ball at the right time, you go at a much faster pace, enabling you to pass by certain things that you need the speed boost for.
It lets you skip Spore Spawn, the first boss of the game.
Yeah, you can skip him doing that. But no, mini boss. I mean, he's never required to be beaten. The only guys you have to beat are the 4 big bosses in order to unlock Torian, which is the where Mother Brain is. But yeah, you got to play the game in order to really understand some of these references, I guess. Trying to think of some other games. Obviously, Super Mario World was the pack-in title, and it was probably one of the most classic Mario games of all time.
I think it probably is my favorite Mario game.
It is one of my favorite Mario games. The only thing is, it took me years to finally seen it in a magazine, the top secret area, which you get from the first ghost house in the second level, the Donut Plains. Until that time, I had 94 listed as all of my save files. 'Cause there's 96 levels in this game, apparently. And I thought you counted the front door and the back door of Bowser's Castle as 2 levels, so... Technically, I was satisfied at getting 96. Then I found a couple different secret entrances and stuff to get to certain places, and wound up maxing my save file to 96. Obviously, the top secret area was one of those levels. I had no idea that existed, but...
Yeah, I thought it was really cool how, like, depending on how you beat the stage, depending on, like, how you finish the level, like, you can go into different areas, like to get into, like, the tubular, I forget what exactly they call that specific area. But it's like tubular, radical.
The super secret stages.
Yeah, the super secret stages.
Yeah, that was a pain in the ass.
Yes.
But once you figure it out, like, it's actually, like, fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
No, the worst was the second one where you have to turn into a balloon through the whole thing. After that, it's not that bad, actually.
That was ridiculously difficult. I believe there was the one that's set in the forest I always had problems with. I lost about 20 to 30 lives on that. It was ridiculous.
That game always makes me, like, not panicky, but it's like, okay, yeah, it does make me scream and panicky a lot. I'm like, no, the whole time while playing it. But I mean, it's a great game if you're really one of, like, the rare population who hasn't played it yet.
Yeah, this was a packing title with the Super NES.
Yeah.
It's been re-released for the Game Boy Advance. I'm positive it's available on the Virtual Console.
Mm-hmm.
For the love of God, if you have not played this game,
do it.
What are you doing with your life? Play it, please. Please.
I mean, I was able to beat it as, like, I don't remember how old I was, but, you know, it's a kid. So, I mean, if I tried to beat it now, well, I really don't have the time to do it, but, like...
We may have to see this one day on Twitch.
Yeah, we're definitely going to do it.
2-player.
I'm in.
You're doing it.
I guess I got dibs on Luigi, then.
Luigi.
Yeah.
I just perpetrated an Italian stereotype.
That's okay. He's Italian
I'm
anyway.
Italian, so kind of works out.
Yeah, we're neighbors.
Yeah.
It's a football. I chisel it.
And I like Yoshi.
Oh, Yoshi's Island.
Yes.
Yoshi's Island was a fun game. It's still one I have never beaten. I've gotten to the last boss. I forget why I never beat him, but I never beat him. So there's that. Mm-hmm. There's also they're finding all the secret stages. Basically, you had to get hundreds in every level, which is. Yeah, I never had the patience to really play through. At this time, I think when I got that game, I was in high school, so I couldn't really focus too much on that game. So, I had a job, working
Homework.
weekends, homework, etc., etc. It just wasn't happening. But, one of these days I'll sit through it and try to unlock all the secrets again. Mm-hmm. I haven't played through that game in forever, so it'll be worth it.
Speaking of secrets, going back to Star Fox, I remember, I think it was if you played in the third, there was 3 different difficulty levels, and each difficulty level will take you on a different route. And I forget which exact route this was, but if you went through specific portals, it would take you into a different level or a different aspect of the asteroid belt. And
I think there was also you had the asteroid belt, and I think you had a secret level with a slot machine.
I never got that. I'm gonna have to try it out.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a glitch. It's supposed to actually glitch the game after you hit the slot machine, but I don't even know if it will end up in the final release. This was actually pre-release, but they hyped this up it was a definite top secret level. Nintendo kind of gave a couple magazines the knowledge of it, and then it's just publish it, we'll see if it winds up in the actual final version.
And Star Fox 2 was actually supposed to have come out, but I think by that point Nintendo was already starting to work on the Nintendo 64, so they were it's kind of
it'll be Star Fox 64 at that point.
Yeah, which was kind of a remake of the Super Nintendo version.
Actually, in the U.S., games were coming out for the Super Nintendo all the way up to about 98, I believe. Mega Man and Bass never really made it here. Mm-hmm. But I know they did a port of Street Fighter Alpha 2 for the Super Nintendo.
It doesn't play good.
No, it really doesn't, because it's for a game so graphically inclined. It doesn't really play. It's very jerky, and the controls are a little
because the original,
off.
I believe the original was a Dreamcast release.
Yeah, and PlayStation, actually. The original PlayStation had it as well. Yeah, Sega Saturn, like, towards the end of its life. It lasted a little longer in Japan than it did here, and it was really known for some of its fighting game titles. So you had, like, a lot of, like, all those Capcom ports, like, Children of the Atom, like, for X-Men Children of the Atom came out for Saturn and everything.
Street Fighter Cross,
Alpha 3.
Yes, Alpha 3.
Street Fighter 3 when that came out.
Like, the real cool thing about the Alpha series is that it was a prequel, so like characters who didn't show up in Street Fighter 2 were actually in the Alpha series.
And then the Capcom got to flex its muscles for some of its other franchises. They brought in Sodom from Final Fight, Guy, I believe.
Yeah, Guy, Cody, and Sodom and Relento, and yeah.
And get to make fun of SNK as well by bringing in Dan, which is their. Basically, he's supposed to be a joke fighter, modeled after like the Ryu.
He's based on, like, I believe,
Ryu Kusanagi.
Some guy named Ryo from Art of Fighting.
Art of Fighting, yeah. A little background from that. SNK was a game designer company. They came out with a system called the Neo Geo. It's a cult classic now because when this came out, the price tag was around $650.
They wanted a like high def like console system at the time so that they could just instead of like having to worry about having all their games like ported inferiorly or whatever onto the Super NES and Genesis, they just made a system where you could just put it out in the arcade and then
put it out for home, and it actually played like the arcade, like as far as graphics and everything. It was, that was the only problem with it. You were paying $650 for the system, and then $200 for every title you bought, because each of these games came on a cartridge. It cost around like upwards of $200, and the games were all mostly fighting games. You had Art of Fighting, World Heroes, Samurai Showdown, and there are many sequels. The only game that I think that was a little different, they had a soccer game on there, Baseball Stars, and Metal Slug.
I believe that's around when the King of Fighters series started up too.
King of Fighters as well. Yeah, it's basically you had all these fighting games, and Capcom sat there fairly amused by this, and eventually wound up, hey, we'll take a shot at these guys. Like, here's Dan, who can't throw a fireball to save his life, and, fights very inferior.
Makes a pretty good blunt weapon, though.
Yeah.
Dan is actually, when they added him then into Street Fighter 4, they fixed him up a little bit. They made him kind of formidable.
Well, that was the thing. By that point, SNK and Capcom had a working relationship, I believe. I'm not sure if they were acquired or they acquired the licenses or whatever happened.
It was a collaboration between the two.
Yeah, because I know SNK's titles are actually still being released for virtual consoles. Like, you could go boot up your PlayStation 3 and download some of these games as they appeared on the Neo Geo.
And they did some
as well. They're also available for Steam, I believe.
Yeah, probably Xbox Arcade, all that stuff.
Yeah, they did like collaboration titles, Capcom vs SNK. There's like 2 games of that series, so it was pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was. I think a lot of it was also using SNK art for some of the Capcom characters too.
Yeah, that was the thing with those titles too. I think they were more for hardcore gamers too, because by that point, a lot of the younger gamers didn't really know about SNK, and like they didn't really get the inside joke there.
And I think at that point also, Street Fighter 3 had come out, and everyone was familiar with the Alpha characters, the Street Fighter 2 characters, and when they added when they created Street Fighter 3, there were like a bunch of people that nobody knew anything about. Like, the only 2 returnees were Ken and Ryu. Of course, you obviously can't have a Street Fighter game without either of them. Chun-Li was only added in the 3rd edition of Street Fighter 3. And even Bison wasn't even there, so people were like, well, who the hell am I supposed to fight?
3, no one ever really talks about 3, because...
Well, 3 is a legacy cult title now.
Yeah,
so.
For one thing, Capcom released Street Fighter 2 in 1991 in the arcades, I believe it was. We didn't see Street Fighter 3 until, what year was that, 2001 maybe?
It may have even been 99, I'm not sure.
8-year gap between sequels. However, they released so many titles between now and then with the Street Fighter on here that not cheapened the brand, but once a game worthy of the title of Street Fighter 3 finally came out, it's like, why even care at this point? We have Alpha 3, you have Street Fighter 2 Turbo Champion Edition, Super Street Fighter 2 with new characters, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Alpha, Alpha 2, Alpha 3. X-Men had a fighting game at the time that was using, Capcom design from the ground up.
Yeah, and they were all doing collaborations. X-Men versus Street Fighter, Children of the Atom.
Street Fighter 3 finally came out. It's like, why even bother? So that's why it's like modern times, it's refreshing that they're putting so much effort into Street Fighter 5 now, because I hate to say it, it's because of the success of Mortal Kombat 9 had, because Mortal Kombat 9 was basically the reboot of the 2D fighter, which was a pretty much lost art at the time, but they rebooted it to make it look completely 3D, but take place in a 2D plane.
Right, because when King of Fighters came out, Street Fighter 4 had already done the whole 3D graphics, and the game really doesn't look all that nice. But King of Fighters, I think Guilty Gear, Melty Blood, Blaze Blue was still doing the hand-drawn designs. But now the new King of Fighters is in 3D, and it really doesn't look all that great. But
that's the thing, because those games were getting successful at the time. Tekken was getting really big.
Virtua Fighter, Dead or Alive.
Virtua Fighter, Toshinden, which is PlayStation's answer to Virtua Fighter. The Soul Calibur series. Yeah,
which I believe may be getting a reboot soon.
Which will be interesting. The original Soul Calibur actually still holds up if you can track it down for PlayStation. Soul Calibur 2
the original Dynasty Warriors.
And Nikki had to throw that one in there.
Of course, because it's such a crappy fighting game. That's how it started. It was a shitty Tekken ripoff.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I saw YouTube gameplay. I said this is going to crash my PS3 playing it. But like I mentioned with Soul Calibur, I believe it is being rebooted. So
yeah, they are rebooting some of these titles, re-releasing a lot of the fighting games because the interest is back again in these. So that's really good.
And now that the fighting game scene has come back again, because
it actually advanced way further than that. I see people make their own joysticks these days. That is a whole culture. Ordering joystick parts, painting the case itself, and they
even had Evo on ESPN this past year.
Yeah.
Which was, a lot of people were complaining on Twitter and online about it, but I thought it was cool.
Yeah, well, people are always going to complain online because they thought of it first, and ESPN is just, making money off something that was a part of gamers' cultures for years. But at the same time, it's deal with it. It's going to happen. Just keep playing and have some fun with it, and stop complaining when the mainstream media notices you.
Yep. I was just happy that, I don't know who any of these quote professional players are. People were making $5,000 a round.
Yeah.
But my favorite Street Fighter character was actually the champion of Evo, so.
What's funny?
Hey.
What's funny about making money off games? StarCraft too. That was a big thing. People are making a fortune off StarCraft 2, basically becoming professional gamers. When Wings of Liberty came out, I wound up buying the someone got me the player guide actually for a holiday. Birthday, Christmas, something like that. And it's just you see advice from players all over the globe. This guy from the Ukraine, South Korea, whatever. Supposedly some of the best StarCraft players in the world were... Blizzard was paying them to contribute to their strategy guide, multiplayer strategies and stuff like that. So, people are making serious money off playing video games, which... as a 12-year-old playing around your cousin's Super Nintendo was a dream for most people. So can you imagine me getting paid to be doing this?
That would be amazing. That would be just, really cool. It's just, I don't really think that the money is into playing Super Nintendo games like this, but...
I don't really give a crap. I spend money to play Super Nintendos because you have to track down some of these games that you didn't have back in the day now, and track down upscalers and stuff to play them on modern TVs. And Yeah, it's totally worth it though. It's so much fun, like tracking down some games you missed as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, funny postscript too, because we went into fighting games. We were talking about the Neo Geo, about how SNK didn't want their titles ported to inferior systems. Well, that's exactly what happens, because a company, I believe called Taxon, maybe it was, or something, it began with a T. This side, or Takara or something. Some Japanese company began with a T. Wound up porting both World Heroes, Art of Fighting, and I believe Samurai Showdown 1 and 2 to the Super Nintendo.
I think I remember playing Samurai Showdown.
Yeah, basically they cut out a lot of stuff, like, graphical stuff, but for the most part it was fairly accurate to the arcade, as best as you can get on a Super Nintendo. But yeah, no, we kind of got away from talking about the Super Nintendo. We talked a little bit about fighting games. Speaking of systems, I've been actually recently trying to track down a Turbo Duo, which on eBay the going price is $400 for, which is crazy for a system that has been dead about 21 years. Basically, the Turbo Duo is basically one of the many releases of the TurboGrafx 16. It's also the first console system to have a CD-ROM, so they wound up making a CD-ROM add-on for your TurboGrafx 16, the Turbo CD, and then eventually they released something called the Turbo Duo, which was these two systems combined in one. And to this day, I don't know too many people that own one, and I've been trying to track one down just out of curiosity, because I love some of the games they've released. They've released some of the best shooters of all time on the TurboGrafx 16. Lords of Thunder is probably one of the best shooters ever made. And the going rate for this system is $400, and it is sad seeing that on eBay. But, I guess that's the price you pay for retro gaming, but
I remember I had, I think it was called Lethal Enforcers for the Super Nintendo.
Lethal Enforcers.
I had the gun with it too. It was really cool.
The Justifier, it was called.
Yeah, we used to plug it in and just pow, 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 which I think was, I don't remember if some of the controls were actually a precursor to Time Crisis, but
yeah, that was in the arcades anyway. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first of those titles that came out, where it was basically they took what the Nintendo was doing with the light gun, Duck Hunt and everything, and turned it into a ridiculous arcade. Obviously the two gun peripherals for the Super Nintendo and Genesis both flopped, the Super Scope and for the Genesis the Menacer. But something like that resembled a real handgun, all painted bright blue.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, if you have a gun that's painted bright blue, you probably shouldn't be an assassin or a bounty hunter or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that got popularized again. Revolution X was another one, which actually wound up better for your arcade than it did for.
Yeah, some of these shooters started coming
Nintendo.
back up with like House of the Dead.
Time Crisis,
Area 54, or was it 50?
Area 51.
51, excuse me. I saw something in the room that had number 54 on it, sorry.
Yeah, well, not in Studio 54.
Nope. I would love to go to Studio 54.
It's completely gone. It's probably like a mattress company now somewhere in New York.
Exactly. I would have liked to have gone in the 70s and do cocaine off Madonna's ass, but...
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that.
Yeah. But anyhow, so another funny SNES story, going back on topic, was a friend of mine thought that he could get away with taking my Super Mario RPG game.
Death.
Oh, yeah, it was death. In the form of me kicking your door down, walking into your house while your family is watching TV, stomping into your room, and just looking for it.
I'd be frightened if Nikki kicked down my door. I would be scared to death. She doesn't look violent, but behind those eyes is the look of a killer when you wrong her.
Yeah, so I looked around, found it, and just walked right out, walked home.
You didn't, run his hand through with scissors, or did the prosecution tell you not to talk about that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
There's a reason why he moved all the way across the world, so...
Okay! Before we start getting a court summons, we're going to move on topics here. So anyway, we're just hoping that future generations will get to experience some of these games we're talking about today, especially the Super Nintendo. And hopefully in another 25 years we won't have to go to a museum to attempt to play some of these games.
And definitely a lot of good memories there. Many of the memories that we've already admitted.
So from all of us at the 240p Club, happy birthday, Nintendo!
Happy birthday!
Nintendo!
Thanks for listening to us today. If you want more information on the 240p Club, you want to go to our website, 240pclub.com. Also, we have facebook.com/240p Club, and we're also on twitch.tv under 240p Club.